Okay, next up, we have Paige Kuntz, Global Talent Coordinator in the Workforce Division at the North Dakota Department of Commerce. Paige joined the workforce team in July of 2023. She holds a bachelor's degree in Human Resource Management and Business Administration and a master's degree in Business Administration and Human Resources Management. Her role involves working with the Office of Legal Immigration, which she is going to tell us about today. Give her a round of applause.
Hello, everyone, and happy October. October 1st today. The drive up from Bismarck was beautiful. I'm here today to tell you a little bit about the Office of Legal Immigration and the work that we've done over the last year. So we just turned 1 year old in August. So we're still a baby, but we've definitely grown the last year. I feel like it's been a very successful year. And I'm looking forward to keeping this work going into the future. So I want to share about the office and some of the things that we can help you with and the resources that we can offer. So a little bit about us. One of the objectives of our office was to develop and implement a statewide strategy to support and recruit foreign-born talent, advise and make recommendations to the governor, legislative assembly, and state agencies, implement a pilot program that supports businesses pursuing or employing work-authorized individuals, and educate employers around resources and available pathways. So first, we can start with a little brief overview about the OLE grant program that is just about to open again for a second round. We had the first round open and close, and the second round is opening later this month, I believe. We will be adding a new element. So a new activity that we can fund with the grant is community integration programs. Now, I'm not an expert on the grant. I work in the office. I'm technically the only employee of the office, but Jana Pastor is the one that is really a pro when it comes to this grant. So I can answer questions, but she's the best resource for that. So I don't know if any of you, I know Kelly has, but we had a Global Talent Summit in Bismarck in August. So that was a one-day event where we invited employers and legislators, communities from across the state to come to Bismarck and listen to experts. So we flew in immigration attorneys and speakers and truly the subject matter experts in the country to Bismarck to present on different opportunities and how North Dakota can access foreign-born talent. So North Dakota we're usually in the top 3 for the most severe labor shortage in the country. We're not surprised. I think everyone knows that. But what is so different is that the United States as a whole is actually very short on labor, just like a lot of the other high income earning countries from around the world. So your Canada, Japan, Germany, places like that, they all have the same issue. There aren't enough youths being born in the country to fill the jobs, to take the jobs, and to grow the economy. So we're trying to look at how we can move labor from around the world to North Dakota. And as you know, it's a federal process. So the United States hasn't done a major immigration reform since like 1986. Reagan was in office. So our system is pretty outdated. And Canada, Japan, they've all modified their systems to be able to easily move people into their country to fill jobs. The United States is very far behind in that. So we're working within the federal regulations. As a state, we have to. But there are some really creative things that we can do and that we've already started to do to welcome more people to North Dakota to fill those jobs. So one of the slides that we had shown in the Global Talent Summit, and it's also from the report that our consultants did, is this slide right here. So it talks about the 4 groups that are considered foreign-born talent. And those groups include international workers, secondary migrants, the recent arrivals to the United States, and international students. So of those 4 groups, the Office of Legal Immigration, has started to build strategies around each of those so we can have employers access each of those and communities. But so international workers is the foreign-born worker living abroad who wishes to come to the United States, whether it be on a work-based visa or a family visa, but they want to take a job in the United States. And some of those really common pathways that people are familiar with is like H-2A, so agricultural workers, H-2B, but it can also include higher level positions as well. So for the recruitment of nurses and teachers and doctors and that sort of thing, a lot of them are coming on visas. So North Dakota is trying to figure out which visas we can utilize to get them into the state more quickly. Secondary migrants, so those include people that have already immigrated to the United States, are here on a legal status, and are able to work. So they may have landed somewhere else, but if we can attract them to North Dakota, whether it be through communities that are already established here or through a very destination type kind of, we hope that North Dakota may become a destination for internationally trained professionals. I think that most people have had an Uber driver who was like a physician in their home country, but they're living in Orlando and they can't practice because of the barriers. So how can we, if not reduce the barriers, but make them easier to transition those international credentials to North Dakota to use them and work at their full scope? And then the recent arrivals to the United States if they have the legal right to work, and they're considered temporary protected status or humanitarian parole. So that includes populations like Ukrainians who have fled their country due to the war and the circumstances and are here on our temporary status, but they're able to work. So we want to attract those as well. And then international students. So not just in North Dakota, but as a whole country, we want to make sure that North Dakota has great jobs for those, because once they graduate from college, they can stay generally at least 1 up to 3 years on a specific visa. And I think one of the worst things is every semester we get calls from students at UND and NDSU who are graduating and they're hoping to stay here and work, but they're having a hard time connecting to an employer who's willing to sponsor that OPT visa, which, by the way, is a very simple process for employers to sponsor that visa. But we want to make sure that we're keeping those students, those now adult professionals, in our state. I talked to a university, and one of the comments they made was, well, our students have no problem getting placed, even if it's, in California or something like that. And I'm like, well, what if, crazy thought, what if we just tried to keep them in North Dakota, the state that they chose to be educated in the first place, and have friends here and a life. So just trying to close some of that gap a little bit. We actually are planning to do another webinar on the OPT visa and how employers can use that to sponsor a worker. So one of the group's international worker pathways, these are some of the different visa pathways that can be utilized, and then some of the details behind each one. On Friday last week, we just had a webinar for the E3 visa, which is a professional visa. I think I have it listed up there. Yeah. So the E3 visa is for Australian nationals only. And these are the things that we're learning as an office. But this visa is very underutilized. So there's over 10,000 visas available annually, and half get used. So they can fill jobs like RNs, teachers, engineers, pilots, any kind of those baccalaureate level degrees and higher, and it's not being used. So the very cool thing is they're nurses that graduate from colleges and universities in Australia actually take the NCLEX. So they're English speaking. Their credentials align very closely to what's needed in North Dakota, and it's available visa, and it's cheaper. It's much cheaper than your traditional H-1B, which I think a lot of nurses and professionals come over on. So it's just kind of learning those little caveats that we would never know if we didn't have an office like ours making the connections that we have with different people around the nation. So it's been hard to learn all of this stuff. There's a lot, and I'm not an immigration attorney. I'm just a regular person trying to muddle my way through. But I think that the value that we can bring is really connecting employers and communities to the resource themselves. And that's what a lot of folks got out of the Global Talent Summit is they were able to talk to the expert in the room and make the connection right there. It was a tangible item that they could actually do. So folks felt like there actually are options for me when they left the summit. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I don't think that every conference has that same effect on people. Sometimes you leave with like, oh, I feel uplifted, but I still really don't know how I'm going to get the job done. And I think that they thought differently when they left the Global Talent Summit. So then the other three groups, secondary migrants, recent arrivals, and international students. So there's a little bit on each of those. So refugees, we are a state that accepts refugees, but they're individuals who are leaving their home country based on various reasons for persecution, and they can come to the United States, and after a year, they're a citizen. And so that's a group that we can utilize in our own state, but also be attractive from around the country. And then asylees are individuals who meet the definition of a refugee, but they're located in the United States already, which is also another path to permanency. TPS and parolees are temporary protected, so their duration is based on individual country conditions. I think Ukraine at first started with 2 years that they were offered this, and it's been extended now to 4 years. And so if conditions don't improve, it's likely to be extended again. So although they may not be here forever, they can definitely fill jobs for years. And of course, they can pursue citizenship during that time too. It's just a long process. And then the OPT, so the optical practical training, is for international students that graduate, and they can work for 1 to 3 years. So yeah, I mentioned the Global Talent Summit and some of the speakers we had for the day. So Lieutenant Governor Tammy Miller, she opened up with opening remarks, and then Kelly Armstrong closed us out at the end of the day. And his story is actually it's kind of cool because it hits home for him since his wife is from Norway. He firsthand knowledge of going through the entire naturalization process, and his kids hold dual citizenship in U.S. and Norway. And so it was definitely a topic that was near and dear to him. Funny thing is, I can't remember what his exact story was, but he had said he signed on to a bill that would something for H-2A workers, to either advocate for more H-2A workers or extend their season or something like that. And he said it was the single most political heat he had ever taken in his whole career. And so, immigration can be such a divisive topic, but in the end, it's just about people coming here legally to fill jobs and to make a life. And I don't think it's anything different than 100 years ago when people were settling in North Dakota. So yeah, and then sandwiched during the day, we had a bunch of different breakout sessions, and each of those focused again on those 4 populations and how to access workers. So some of the things that we're working on now, of course, gearing up for the next legislative session. I think one of the asks will be possibly for a name change. So we're Office of Legal Immigration, but I think we're hoping for something that's more reflective of what we actually do. So Global Talent Office or something like that. Office of Legal Immigration it stimulates that we're like an enforcement agency, and we're not. We're really workforce focused. And like I mentioned, the webinar last week, Friday, for healthcare providers, we had over 100 registries, not attendees, registries from across the state, different healthcare providers who had to learn from an immigration attorney and a recruiter, an Australian recruiter. So those are some learning opportunities that we plan to keep going and to move forward. So I mentioned the international student one will be coming up soon, and then we're revamping the OLI grant, so that'll be coming again this month. And then enhancing our website experience and available resources is always ongoing. And continuing education and training opportunities for employers. We do a lot of one-on-one calls too. So if you have, any need or any question or any idea, you can always feel free to reach out to me directly or the Office of Immigration email, which I answer. So either way, you get me. But I'd be happy to meet with each of you, and we've done a ton of work getting to know employers and making recommendations and connecting them to the resources they need, because one fix is not right for every employer. So depending on what business you have and what your goals are, it can vary on what the best resources are that you need. And spoiler alert, we will be hosting another Global Talent Summit next year. So stay tuned for that. I hope to see all of you there. Some resources. So the OLI website, we have a lot of FAQs and different resources listed. The webinar is on there now. But the three main parts are the community support resources, recruitment and staffing agencies, and legal service providers. So those are all entities that we have vetted ourselves, and we've added them to the website because we think that they can fill a need that North Dakotans need. And then business opportunities, not just business, I should say, also community opportunities. But we have specific pilot pipelines that we can connect employers to pools of candidates. And if you're interested in learning more, you can reach out. Thank you. So I have plenty of time for questions. Yes. Yeah. So the federal process, like the lottery system that it initially goes to, is pretty random. So it's not, I wish it was more based on like how dire each state's needs were, that they would get more, more approvals for the applicants, but it's pretty random. I think that some of the things that we're doing is finding the lesser known visa types, the ones that we can really capitalize on, that other states don't know about yet. So I'm in a group called the Office of New American Network, and there's, I believe, 20 other states who do similar work to us, but it really is quite a bit different. So we're in commerce and we're focused on workforce. And some of our other states, our peer states, are kind of lost. Like they're dealing with people that are already there, that they're trying to figure out, what do we do with the humans that are already here? And we're trying to focus on building infrastructure before we are like, hey, come live and work here. So we're operating more forward thinking. They're operating in more of a crisis mode. And so North Dakota gets a lot of recognition, first of all, because we're kind of an oddball state doing this. I don't think people would have thought that we would be in the first 20 states to have an office. So they probably thought we'd be near last, but we're being kind of pragmatic about all of this and logical. Like, we need people and there aren't enough people here. So we need to find ways to bring people here and retain them. So keeping them here is also extremely important. What other questions do you have? I expected more. Yes. In Minot, I know that there are some. We have an agent here in North Dakota. I think he's in Devil's Lake, and he came here on an H-2A, and he started kind of his own firm. So most agriculture farmers and stuff, they go through an agent to find people. Yes, we have the list on the website has the different recruiters that you can access, and same with legal service providers. So if you're needing any of that as far as pursuing immigration, we have a list there too.
You mentioned earlier that you had calls from students just graduating for using your visa and they can't find companies employers to sponsor them. Based on the amount of calls you get, how many do you think you're just losing and just can't get one out of the door in another state or just go back to their own country?
Yeah, I'd like to. I'd hope that they find something eventually. But so the first year after they graduate, they can take essentially any job. They could be an engineer, and if they can't find an OPT sponsor, they can go like work at McDonald's. Of course, why would we want that? We're not using their full potential. But after that 1 year, if they don't find sponsorship, they would have to go home. So we want to make sure that before they're even graduating, that they're starting that process with an employer, because it does take a few weeks. So I think the importance of having another webinar where we can really educate employers on it's not hard to sponsor an OPT visa, and you're trying someone out. Like if you find that they're not a good organizational fit, you don't have to sponsor a green card for them. You can just say thank you for your time and they go home. So it really isn't a scary process. I just think it's a lack of awareness and understanding from the employer and from the university. I want the universities to be very well versed in placing their students with employers who are willing to sponsor them. I don't think we want, and with the labor shortage, we don't want any student graduating college to not have a job after. So hopefully I answered your question. Thank you.